front board. Let's go through each one of these. If you have an answer and a justification, raise your hand. I'm going to be jotting down a few notes. If I write something down, underline something, you do too. For number one, raise your hand. Which figure has the corresponding angles? Tim?
G, corresponding angle.
What do you think of when you think of corresponding? How do you know that that's corresponding?
The measure of the angles are always on one side, and one is on the outside, one is on the inside.
All right, one is interior and one is always exterior. We can sum that up with three words: same relative position. Did this problem mention anything about parallel lines?
No.
No. Can't go by looks. It looks like they're parallel, but we have no idea. It doesn't matter. We're allowed to use words like corresponding, alternate interior, alternate exterior with these type of drawings, even if they're not parallel. Once they're parallel, then we can start saying that the relationships of the angles are a certain amount, or maybe they're equal, maybe they're supplementary. That's number one. Number two, raise your hand, tell me what we're looking at. Cameron.
Alternate exterior angles.
Alternate exterior angles. Here's the transversal. Let's write that down again. I always try to put some sort of vocabulary item on your test. So remember to go to the end of the chapter and make sure you know all the vocabulary. It's at the end of chapter 3. Alternate really means left and right. We've got the one on the left, we've got the two on the right. Exterior is everything outside of the parallel lines. So everything this way, everything this way. Once again, did that mention anything about parallel lines? No. So we don't need parallel lines to use these terms. Once we start saying that they're equal or supplementary, then we need things to be parallel. The makers of the state SOL test love questions like this. I've seen a question like that every single year. Raise your hand, tell me what has to be parallel. Francisco. A and C. So that's choice A. Let's take a look. Remember, you can't go by looks. It looks like they're parallel, but the drawings are never drawn to scale. You have to go by numbers. And for something like this, I would ask you to remember your linear pairs and your vertical angle pairs. So if I'm seeing a drawing like this or a diagram like this, I immediately start putting in some vertical angles. I'll start putting in linear pair angles. I'll fill up everything. And then I'll look for systems that look exactly the same. This system looks exactly the same as this system. All of the angles correspond. Therefore, I want A and C. Kelly?
Could you also say alternate exterior?
Sure. Sometimes there's so many lines you might get confused. She's saying that this angle and this angle, if you just focused on those two lines and the transversal, that and that would be alternate exterior. You could say that also. Whatever's easiest for you to visualize. Yes?
But wouldn't it be confusing because there's so many lines, but it doesn't show an official closure?
You just have to learn to focus on some lines at once. We've got this line, and this line. Number 4 is a good question that we've seen show up lately because you don't see a whole lot of one-step questions anymore on the SOL. Usually you have to think 2 or 3 steps ahead. All of these choices might be true, but only one does that. Only one will actually prove that L is parallel to M. Raise your hand and tell me which one actually does the proving. JP. A. Can you justify what kind of angle pair is 2 and 6? Corresponding. Got a corresponding angle pair. We have some other ones that are true. Is 2 equal to 3? Why?
Vertical angles.
They're vertical angles, so they're definitely equal. But does this tell me anything about M? It tells me about L, it doesn't tell me anything about M. I don't like that. 7 is definitely equal. 7 and 8 are definitely equal to 180 because they are a linear pair. 3 and 5 do not equal 90, so we can just get rid of that. But B and C were actually true. A was the only one that actually did any proving because 2 and 6 told me something about line L and line M. So don't look for truth, look for what's actually doing the proving. Do these look parallel? No, but we can still use these terms. We just can't talk about whether things are equal or supplementary. Once again, we are looking at corresponding angles. Same position within the system, up and to the left. Next page. Another question similar to the one on the previous page. Raise your hand, tell me what I'm looking at. Which ones are actually parallel? Tim?
Letter answer H.
H, L, and N. That would be this one and this one. If I'm looking for a specific angle pair, there really isn't none. There isn't any. But if I start putting in linear pairs and vertical angles, then I see that this system is the same exact system up there. Everything corresponds. And that was choice H. Number 7, once again, we're looking for what makes this system parallel. So I got to have something about each system. I got to know something from this and something from this. Am I missing numbers, or is it just give those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Yeah.
All right. Which one of those gives me parallel lines? Francisco. Which one? D. 3 and 4 are supplementary. So within here we get 180 degrees. What kind of angle pair? You could call this same side interior or consecutive interior. We've seen both show up on the state tests. Once again, we have true statements. 4 and 5 are supplementary. 1 and 3, not true. 2 and 3, equal. That's true. So A and C were also true, but they did not do the job. Be careful of little words like not. The SOL test loves to throw in the negation of what you're used to. Why wouldn't, our answer is A, why wouldn't A do this? Megan? You know, 7 and 6 only deal with line N. It doesn't tell us, it's a true statement, but it doesn't tell us anything about line M. If you have drawings that bring in materials, buildings, structures, and it doesn't look exactly like what you're used to, extend the diagram. Make it look like our parallel line transversal diagram. It's parallel, so we've got arrows. What kind of angle pair are we looking at? Same side interior. Consecutive, which we just said were supplementary. So in your head or on paper, you're thinking of that equation. Do a little subtraction. H will be 135. I tell you that the drawings aren't drawn to scale. If you actually took a protractor and put it on here, it might be close to 45, but it's probably not exactly 45. But does it look like it's acute? Does this look like it's obtuse? That you can't change within the transversal diagram. So if this is acute right over here, then this must be obtuse right over here. So you have some idea of what the number is supposed to be. Just looking at the drawing, I could tell that one of my choices is gone. Did everybody take the PPSAT or the PSAT the other day? When you take the SAT tests, sometimes you don't want to actually do a question. If you have no idea how to do the question, you probably shouldn't put down an answer. Because the only way you get points taken off is if you get incorrect answers. You want to get questions right. So suppose there's 25 questions on a section. Two different people take the test, and they both get 20 correct. 20 correct, 20 correct. Let's say 21. This will work out better. 21 correct, 21 correct. This person tries to do all the problems, even though they have no clue on what's happening, and they get 4 wrong. This person doesn't have any clue on those 4 questions. They decide not to do those 4 questions. So 4 they omit or don't answer at all. This person gets a score of 21. This person gets a score of 20 because I think it's still the same. The last time I looked, you get 1/4 of what you get wrong taken off. So what's 4 divided by 4? 1. So this person gets 21 minus 1. They end up with a score of 20. The general instructions are that you make an attempt if you can reduce the answers down to 2 choices. What I would do is get yourself an SAT practice book that gives you the latest strategies. I don't know if that's still true. They've changed around the SAT a couple of times over the last couple of years, but I think that they still tell you if you have no clue on the question, don't do it. Only if you've whittled down your choices to 2 choices. Keep that in mind when you're going to take the PSAT or the SAT. Is that it for that page? Where are we? All right, one more. Another one where we have structures. I would put in parallel lines. I would put in some transversals. We have 2 transversal systems. You've got 8 angles over here, and then you've got 8 angles over here. You got to be careful with what you're comparing. In this case, I probably don't want to compare X and Z because they're on 2 different transversals. They really aren't formed by the same 2 things. Y and Z, they're within this trapezoid, but this one has to do with this transversal over here. Z has to do with this transversal, so it's probably not that. Y and W. Once again, this is with this transversal, this one is with this one. I'm guessing that the answer is X equals Y. Now let's take a look to see if it is. X equals Y. They're saying this is equal to this one. What kind of letter, and what is the Z shape supposed to make you think of? Alternate interior. Because we have alternate interior angles that are equal. That means that this is parallel to this. Eleven, we're actually given some information. Make sure you put it in the drawing. On the test, if you have given information and I don't see it in the diagram, you're going to get points taken off. Make sure you transfer it to the drawing. They're telling us things are parallel. Put that in the drawing. If you know one, you know the rest. What's next to 110 right here? 70. Start using linear pairs, vertical angles, and then we know that this system has to be the same as this system, so everything corresponds. And what are we trying to answer? Which one of these makes sense? Okay. 5 is 110. I'm kind of shouting out the justifications as we go through. That one, you could talk about in a number of different ways. I could talk about vertical angles. I could talk about linear pairs. Then I could talk about how this corresponds to this. This one has a very specific justification. What is it? I'm looking at alternate interior. What's the relationship between alternate interior angles that are in a parallel situation? They're equal. Go ahead, put some arcs in to show that you know that those are equal. That's your equation. Your equations are either going to be setting two things equal to each other or setting things equal to 180. I'll let you do that. What is that, 15? G? What's my justification or type of angle that I'm dealing with here? This one's alternate. Exterior. What's the relationship? What do I know about those angles? Everything with the word alternate in front of it is just equal. This angle is equal to this angle. If you solve that, what do you get? 60? There is no name for this angle and this angle. They're not corresponding. They're not a linear pair. They're not vertical. They're not alternate interior, alternate exterior. They're not consecutive. One's an acute angle inside and one's an obtuse angle on the outside. But if things are parallel, then they either have to be equal to each other or they have to add up to 180. If one's acute and the other's obtuse, what's the relationship? What will x plus 48 have to be? Page 130. So if there really isn't a specific name that I can give those to, I could do something like this. Why is that angle 48? Corresponding. And then why is 48 plus x going to be 180 there? Linear pair. So I could jump from here to here using corresponding. And then I could jump from here to here with linear pair. Or you could just think to yourself, it's a parallel line situation. Either things are equal or they add up to 180. Are those pretty easy? Yes, you're gonna have a test on this next week sometime. It depends on how quickly we get through all of our proof work. We're also gonna be doing some slope work next class. You are responsible now for workbook sections 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, 3.4. Now, you're not going to get more than that from this chapter. So you got to pace yourself. You know that that's due our next test, which will probably be Thursday or Friday of next week. So you got to get those 4 sections done before then. You could probably do 1, 2, and 3 at the same time, but they're all similar questions. 3.4 deals with slope. You might have to do some reading before you get to that. We haven't really covered it, but if you read it, you can do it. While you are working on 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, and 3.4, I'm going to show Donald Duck in Math Magic Land. Have you ever seen Donald Duck in Math Magic Land?
Yeah.
It's mainly for elementary school and middle school, but I'm going to stop it and show you the upper level mathematics that are involved.
Doesn't have like the coolest
Oh, and of course you have this homework.
How many people are I was thinking more about 200.
I would like you to do the worksheet first. That's what we're going to go over. And if you get to the workbook, you've got about an hour today to work on this.
And I don't even have to stand.
I don't want to see. I have a jacket. Nice class.
All of the answers are already hanging right over there.
To the worksheet?
Yeah, no, to the
I was ready. I'm like,
It was I used to it.